That is Cameron Stewart of Locked On Baylor. The BYU Cougars, very good right now. The Baylor Bears, very good right now. The Kansas State Wildcats, Jerome Tang, despite still being below 500, are finally winning basketball games. But it feels like unequivocally a team we have talked about is number one in the conference right now, getting a road win against Houston without your head coach, without your best player. Very emotionally charged win. Is there another school in the Big 12 that you would put ahead of Texas Tech as of today?
I still like Iowa State better, even though that debauchery on Saturday, that was
downtrend, a slump, a bit of a slump.
Yep. I still like them overall, but honestly, I'd have Tech like right there with Houston. Genuinely, the spots that we thought we had Kansas and Baylor at this year is where Tech is at. I mean, Grant McCasland, dude, like all he does is win basketball games. Like everywhere he goes, he wins 20 plus games, and no matter the scenario. And he's got enough of like that tactical mind with just so much in terms of getting you ready to run through a brick wall that like this Tech, this slimy bastard basketball they played under Chris Beard is more or less back here with Grant McCasland. There we go. I'm not combining them with Grant McCasland, dude. Like they could do more offensively than those Mark Adams teams could, and they're gonna put you in the penitentiary if you want to. If you're like, hey, you want to do this knockdown, drag out game that Cincinnati likes to play, sure, we'll beat you there too. And JT Toppin is a big reason why they can play a couple different styles. I like this Tech team a lot. I'm really worried about Baylor going to play them on Tuesday night out in Lubbock. I think this is kind of from where it was at the beginning of the year, that Kansas, Iowa State, Houston, Baylor, this top three now is different. It's Iowa State, Houston, and Texas Tech.
For the Baylor Bears, we'll get into BYU. We'll get into Houston. For the Baylor Bears, the Kansas game, you texted me and said, are you watching this? And at the time, I wasn't. I was working the Savannah Bananas and the Party Animals. Like, I don't know. So what
play all the time.
What could I be missing here? I checked the score a little bit. Kansas is up by a ton. Why would I even watch it? Then, storming back, Scott Drew's team. The question marks, even a week ago, 2 weeks ago, where analysts are saying Baylor might not make the tournament, putting them in the same category as like Gonzaga. Those two teams are usually good down this year, aren't what they were advertised, and the transfer portal is to their detriment. Is all of that put to rest completely? Can we officially declare the Baylor Bears back?
God, I wish I could say yes. God, I wish I could. The problem is VJ Edgecombe goes down in that game. He doesn't play the last 10 or 12 minutes, which makes it more impressive that Baylor was able to do their second comeback of the game without VJ Edgecombe. But he was so much your offense the last 4 or 5 games. And Rob Wright has stepped up at times. He certainly was the player of the game. It looked like down the stretch against Kansas, he had 20 in the second half. Norchad Omier had 18 and 16 in the game. But if he's healthy and he's ready to go, they're still shorthanded. They're still down a couple of guards in Roach and Love. But if VJ is ready to go on Tuesday night, I'm not saying like, they're going to go into Lubbock and win. But yeah. I think you would have enough confidence in the group that you have coming off that win against Kansas to kind of figure it out. It took a couple games, but figure out what works offensively, what works defensively. Certainly worked against Kansas, especially in that second half, and having as close to your full allotment as possible. So it's a lot of good things, a lot of positives, but like they could slip back into losing 3 out of 4 here, especially if VJ is not playing. But look, Baylor beats Kansas every year. Like that's not even the storyline anymore. It's 6 straight seasons that Baylor's beaten Kansas. So five straight years at home. So it's no big. We beat Kansas all the time. This must be something in the oranges.
The Iowa State Cyclones. You talked about it a bit. You prefaced it a bit. I mentioned how Kansas State seems to be very hot right now. It wasn't as if Taman Lipsey sucked. He still had 20 points. I mean, your best player still got was still good. It's not as if Kansas State got a ton more free throws, 21-19. It's not as if Kansas State made way more 3-pointers, 10-8. This was just a good old-fashioned beat down, a 10 rebound differential. Jerome Tang's team that has been so good that almost beat those Baylor Bears a couple of games ago. That team looked like a Big 12 championship caliber program going into Hilton, outscoring Iowa State 43-26 in the second half. What do we do with the Cyclones now? Because we went from world beaters, number 3 in the country, to certainly very fallible.
I give them a pass. It's not a good game. But in terms of how I'm looking at this team overall, now where it gets tricky is their next game tonight, in a place where opponents don't typically win. If they were able to come out at Kansas with a win, then that obviously puts them right back at the top. But even if they, fight hard, get the old moral victory, you know what you're saying? It's just a stretch in the Big 12. That's what you're saying, using the Scott Drew line. Just another day in the Big 12. But also, you do have to bring in some of the outside stuff into this one. This is Tang Gang, baby. This is Tang Gang with their backs up against the wall in terms of their tournament season, which they missed out on last year, and in terms of Jerome Tang's job. We all know that the buyout's ridiculous, and Kansas State and their fans don't think they can afford it. But we are really kind of walking the tightrope of whether we bring back Jerome Tang next year. And then if they make the tournament as a 9 seed, an 11 seed, you know what? They'll say, we're close. Jerome will say, we're close. We went into Hilton and beat them suckers by 20 points, man. Yeah. And look, they just went to the Elite Eight. We beat them by 20. And we beat, BYU in the conference tournament. So don't give up on us yet. We're just coming alive. It's going to take a couple more wins here, obviously, a couple more high-profile wins for Kansas State to get in the tournament. But maybe they did show you something over the weekend. I was stunned to see just how simple it looked for them in the second half. The layups. I mean, it was, I did not expect that much of a breakdown for Iowa State defensively to give up 43.5. Yeah,
tough to get there. But if we look up and see 20-13 Kansas State, they're in.
Yeah.
If we see
Big 12 still has that kind of respect. Yeah.
19-14 Kansas State, Jerome Tang will make a case, and it's all about what have you done for me lately. They really stunk up the first half of Big 12 play, but if they finish it off with a strong back half, they're fine. They're in business. It's college football the same way. What have you done for me lately? Then the BYU Cougars, winners of 5 of 6. Granted, Oklahoma State, Colorado, UCF, Cincinnati aren't that impressive. The Baylor win stands out amongst the last few. Now they host Arizona. They get Cincinnati, West Virginia on the road. Very hot Kansas State team coming to their place. They're in the tournament to me right now at 16-5. They can play their way out. They can play their way up. Is BYU a boom, bust, pass, yes, no? Where do you put the Cougars?
I'm going to put them in the boom for the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Those tough games you mentioned in there, this is very distinctive, for them versus most other programs in this league, and the fact that those games are at home. Yeah. BYU needs to be, and it has been the last 2 years, a cauldron. Just a hellscape to play in, a wonderful place to meet with people before or after the game, but a hellscape to be inside as a visitor. I know they lost to Tech there earlier this year, but Tech's really good. But you took a game against Baylor with 2 pretty evenly matched teams that both were desperate for a win, and I think BYU wins that game because they're playing at home. I think that home atmosphere can give them 4 to 6 points, and they win by 4 in overtime. Cannon Catchings was tremendous in that game. He couldn't miss. That's something that happens to freshmen at home and not on the road. They even avoided a pretty subpar Trevin Nell game. He kind of came on at the end. But that's the thing with BYU is it just hasn't been it hasn't been cohesive, kind of like Baylor. It hasn't been cohesive all at the same time, right? Demon was out. Catchings is starting to get some confidence here. Nell is at kind of a slump in that span. And so once those 4 or 5 are playing together here and kind of all hot at the same time, and they're winning their home games, BYU is going to be okay. And we say with this league, if you win your home games, you're probably going to be fine. And in the case of what I was saying for Baylor last week, which BYU was in the same boat, win your home games, beat the teams you're supposed to beat, just fine.
Kansas also good. Kansas also good. That's my assessment of the Jayhawks. That is Cameron Stewart at Real Cam Stewart on the Bird app. This has been, it always will be. I'll just close it out there. Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Dose Grande.